we're rolling. So thanks for jumping on here. It's great to meet you. This is the first time we've met. But yeah, really glad we could talk here, and you agreed to this.
Yeah, man, it all starts with creating the content. I like what you're doing. And then when you ask someone to do something, all of a sudden things like this come about.
Dude, totally. I mean, people are like, how do you get people to like talk to you? And it's like you literally just ask, right? Like most people are pretty willing to, right? So yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, let's start. I've been looking through all your content, right? You're pretty big on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. Looks like you're about to take over Twitter here as well pretty soon, right? But but yeah, let's start with what's your story?
Yeah, so I was misguided in college. I didn't really have a plan. I feel like most folks, you go to college, you meet some friends, you maybe get involved, and then senior year you decide, hey, I gotta get in the job market, start making some money. So I was super fortunate to get hired at a fast-growing software company out of college in Ohio. I had no idea what tech sales was, software sales, all of these big terms. So ended up moving to Dallas, Texas, to start this company as a sales development rep. And I really enjoyed not only sales, but just working in the tech industry after really having no idea what it was all about previously.
Hmm.
And then next thing you know, I started to find success in the role. And I decided I wanted more outside of the office. And that led me to create content and invest in my personal brand, start posting on YouTube, hundreds of videos. And then I decided, hey, LinkedIn's a great place where people who I make content for reside. And then it started, hey, let me plug the YouTube videos. And then I decided, hey, LinkedIn's its own thing. Let me start creating content just for LinkedIn. So it's really evolved into this whole thing where I'm making money online, helping people. And it's allowed me to not have to rely on a W-2 income or a corporation to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want.
Yeah, totally. And it sounds like there's maybe drama is not the right word, right? But like a lot of stuff has sort of happened in your career in the last couple of months, and I want to get into that. I just watched your video on leaving the job or getting fired there and
Oh, it
what
was
you're doing
fired.
now.
It was
Yeah,
fired.
yeah.
It was not
I didn't know.
voluntary. It was
I
not
didn't,
voluntary.
I didn't know how you wanted me to phrase it there, but yeah, getting fired there and sort of what you're up to next, and I really want to dive into that. But first, I want to start because obviously your big niche, I would call it, right, is tech sales. Um, and like most people, at least myself, right, I would say most people in tech sales, you don't really like, you're not in middle school thinking like, I can't wait to be in tech sales when I grow up, right? So you obviously grew up in Ohio, then you went to Ohio University. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
And then you got out of school and you obviously got in at Qualtrics, which is a great company to get into right out of college. But how did you get into tech sales? How did that whole thing happen?
It was complete luck, Nick. And I entered senior year of college having no internships, really no connections. I started to position myself junior year to be differentiated because everyone has a degree, everyone's qualified, but how are you more qualified than the next person who's also seeking out that job? So I didn't really have all those accolades. My entire goal was to get a sales job in a big city outside of Ohio. I happened to be involved in a sales student organization that I wasn't active in at all. I saw they had a career fair. I looked at the 34 companies that were going, and I found six that were hiring outside of Ohio. I didn't think about industry. I didn't think about where would I be in 5 years. It was just who is hiring for sales outside of Ohio. And I got fortunate to eventually go through the interview process with the company you mentioned, and I got hired there. I interviewed at dozens of companies, all industries. So
Mhm.
it really found me. And then upon starting, that's when it clicked to me of hey, people want to make a lot of money. Sales is the place to make a lot of money, but what is the right vehicle, the right opportunity? And if you're in tech, you don't necessarily need to be too talented just to ride the wave of all of the booming growth of these companies. So I would much rather sell software than let's say some manufacturing instrument because software for a variety of reasons is better, but that's where the money's at right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree about that. Like a similar situation actually. I got out of college and I was like, what do I do? Right? Like I can't code. I'm not like an accountant. I'm not a finance guy. Right? Like where do you go? Right? And tech sales is a great opportunity, especially with like no experience. Right? Like you can get in the door and grind. Right? And sort of make a name for yourself without any like specific sort of technology skills. What do you recommend to college students that are graduating and want to get a job at like a tech startup, right? Because there's tons of applicants that they have, right? Especially in the job market now. Did you do anything special to get your foot in the door there?
I would encourage everyone listening to accept that life is very, very competitive. So it's your job daily to ask yourself, how can you continue to further yourself as a person, whether it be your health, whether it be in your relationships, whether it be professionally. And I've always wanted to invest professionally. I've always just wanted to make a lot of money. So
Mhm.
as you look at, okay, I'm not going to change the system. How can I play the game to the best of my ability? You want to look for performance-based careers where you get paid based on your contributions to the firm. So when you think about where are the performance-based careers, it's in the tech industry. You could either be a coder engineer, to your point, which requires a lot of technical skill. Clearly, that's a trend that's here. And if you know how to program a computer, you're valuable in the marketplace. You could get into finance, which would be investment banking, sort of management consulting in some areas, but that requires you trading a lot of your time and energy, and it's sort of this long trajectory, get to some managing director 10 years later, and you've traded your soul for that successfully, but made a lot of money in the process.
Mhm.
But then the route I took was tech sales, because these fast growing tech companies that have all this money, that software is eating the world, they need to go to market. They need to increase their sales. And people don't just go buy AI because AI told them, hey, come buy me. It's a person, it's a relationship. So you don't need to be technical. You need to have good communication skills. You need to be able to constantly be learning, because next thing you know, your product fundamentally changed overnight. So I knew it was very competitive. I knew I had a target. So that's the one actionable piece I would recommend to your audience. If you do want to make a lot of money, if you do want to get into tech, for example, or any of those professions, got to be in a performance based career. It's going to be competitive. Write down your target. And that led me to just sales job outside of Ohio. Okay, I need to go apply to companies. I need to do interviews, dozens of interviews. I ended up networking my way into, for example, Dell EMC. They flew me out to Boston. I never even got the job, but that was a cool opportunity that happened because I was pursuing all avenues to get interviews at companies that were hiring sales jobs outside of Ohio. So
Mhm.
when you simplify it like that, set a target, take action to reach that target, repeat.
Yeah, and how important do you think that first company is? Obviously, you stayed at the same company for a long time. I feel like in the tech sales world, you can do that, or there's a lot of people that sort of can hop around every 2 to 3 years, right? You obviously stayed in the same company. I think you were at a good company to get in at. But how important do you think that first job is, right? Whether it be a big company or a startup.
Think about the best players in the NBA. They probably played multiple sports in high school, but did they also try and play football in college, go to the NFL for 2 years, and then say, you know what, I actually want to do basketball. Let me go back to
Yeah.
basketball. They don't. They stay on the same path. So there's a lot of advice out there that says be patient. Your first career probably won't be it. But if you don't find yourself in the right opportunity to start, that's okay. But just recognize that it's going to diminish your level of competitiveness going forward. I've always viewed it as you want to get in that great opportunity first. You want to start, because the more you've done it, the more experience you're going to have, the more differentiated you're going to be in the marketplace. And if you can start at a great company to begin with in a path you know you want to do for the next 20 years, it just sets you up for much greater success, because it takes time to get good at these things, to build a reputation in the industry. So I would look at it in a 10, 20-year horizon. If you do want to be in the tech industry, if you do want to be in sales, even if you're 36, you still can start, but just recognize that you're starting from ground zero. But if you can start at ground zero at 22, like I did, it
Mhm.
just sets you up for success. So by 26, you can make $302,000 of W 2 income a year, and then leverage that to go get another high paying job, to potentially do your own thing if you manage to build a personal brand. So the earlier you start, the better it's going to be with anything. It's like a tree. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. But when's the
Yeah.
next best time? Today. So you got to start today.
Yeah, totally. But how much weight do you put into like the actual company, right? So like getting out, right? Like you could maybe interview at 50 different startups, right? And maybe a quarter of those won't even be around in let's say 10 years, right? And I think there's a level of importance in getting in at the right company. Like how picky do you think people should be in the beginning? Like if you have no experience, should you still be like I only want to go to these top tier companies, or just getting your foot in the door in tech sales, maybe getting that first year of experience so you can go to a better company.
Well, if you think about the quality of food you put in your body is going to shape how healthy you are. How much time do you spend in the relationships you have in life? That's the most important decision, your life partner. So if you look at work, let's say you work 40 hours a week, 56 weeks a year, 52, whatever it is. It's like 2,200 hours a year you're spending in this environment. So
Mhm.
if you're in an environment that you're not growing, that you don't like, that doesn't compensate you for the work you're putting in, it's a waste of time, in my opinion. So I would recommend being as picky as you possibly can. But the challenge is most people aren't competitive enough to have leverage in the marketplace. They're desperate to take any opportunity that comes to them. So I feel fortunate to have landed and got lucky and got in a good spot where I now have leverage and I now have as many options as I want. But in the beginning, it wasn't quite like that. So what I would recommend is do as much as you can to differentiate yourself so you do have these options so you can pick the opportunity that you want to be at for at least the next 3 to 5 years. I was thinking about this today. It's such a waste of your time to start at a company and then jump to another company to take the same title for like 10K more a year
Yep.
because you may be getting higher upside the long term. Maybe it's a good decision, but it just takes so much time to build that trust and that reputation in the company that I think it gives you a lot more opportunity. So I would really make decisions that are on 5 year time horizons. So I would have really high standards.
Yeah, that was really well said. Like you are kind of marrying that company, right? If you get in early. Um, I do want to switch it up a little bit. So obviously, social media has been a big part of your career, I would say, right, in the last couple of years for you. What point did you decide that you were going to start posting on LinkedIn and YouTube and really go in on that?
I always liked YouTube. I always wanted to make YouTube videos. I was always sort of playing in it. I would make a video, get excited, and then just not touch it again for 3 months.
Hmm.
It wasn't until 2020 when I was about, let's say, 2 years into my tech sales career, we were forced to work from home because of the pandemic and all that. And I didn't really see an end in sight. So I had that light bulb moment of, I don't think I'm going to be able to do anything for the next 6 months. I don't know how long this is going to last, but if I'm forced to stay at home, I don't have to commute. I'm not really doing things socially as much anymore. If I don't start my channel now, it's never going to happen. So
Yeah,
it started with my target was to make money online. I watched this Graham Stephan video. He's a personal finance guy.
I
He
love Graham
talked about
Stephan.
making $1 million a year from ad revenue without selling a product. And as soon as I saw that, I said, if he can do it, I can do it. The money's here. This opportunity is going to be here for a while. I'll never have more time to invest in it. So I just started making YouTube videos in 2020, and it was my hobby. I did it to make money, and I still do it to make money openly, but
Yep.
it's my hobby because if you don't enjoy doing it, if you want to make money online, you like technical outdoor gear and you want to do product reviews, go for it. But if you don't actually enjoy the process of making a video talking about the product, then the money's not even worth it. So you got to enjoy it first and foremost. And I think that's the point people miss is the reason I've managed to find success with it is because I talked about what I actually do, how I do things opposed to how to expert. I'm in tech sales. I'll talk about tech sales. It's an extension of my day. So that's why I was able to find success with it and stay consistent because I enjoyed the process. I stayed true to my target and the belief that it could happen. And then all of a sudden the things fall into place.
Totally. But so the early days, right? Like this happens on any platform for most cases, right? You have anomalies, but most people you start posting on the platform, right? Like I think I've seen you mention it before, basically no engagement, right? And it's super depressing, right? Like you look at all these big, referencing Graham Stephan, right? Like it took him a while, but now, he gets hundreds of thousands of views every single time. And it's pretty depressing throwing up that first video and it's like 4 views and then the next one and it's like 15 views, right? At what point did you start seeing that you were like catching some momentum and you were starting to get some views and some engagement and things like that? And was it the same on both platforms when we look at YouTube and LinkedIn?
It's a good question, Nick, because if you're in bad shape and you go to the gym, you know that you have to keep working out to get in shape. You're not going to recognize results overnight. And it's like anything worthwhile, it just requires patience. I have the data pulled up for you here.
Oh, let's do it.
So on May 13th, 2020, right
Yep.
around when I was like a month and a half into being home, I was like, I'm going to really commit to this thing. I published 16 YouTube videos and I had 100 subscribers. I've got all these exclamation marks next to it.
Yeah.
And then let's fast forward to um, March 8th, 2021. So 10 months later, I published 172 videos. So that's about 100 and let's say 50 more. And that's how long it took me to reach 1,000 subscribers. So think about that. 10 months, 150 more videos, and we're talking
Yeah.
8 to 12 minute videos to reach 1,000 subscribers. It then took like 3 to 5 more months from that point to even monetize the channel, to start making pennies a day on YouTube. So
Yeah.
think about that. Are you willing to put in work for a year and make no money from it to just delay the infrastructure? And that's the same with anything. So that was just specific to YouTube. But also keep in mind that if I were making makeup or video game videos, much easier to get views, and you get paid based on basically, they call it per 1,000 views, you get paid X amount of dollars. If
Yeah.
you're making video game Minecraft videos, you might get paid like $7 per 1,000 views. My content has a really high value for the subscriber. It's
Yeah.
$33 per 1,000 views. So you can do the math on that to see just ad revenue. But
Yeah.
that's why B2B content, it's not easy to do. For anyone listening, you got the B2B newsletter.
As
Go out and try to make B2B content. It's so hard.
it is. I was gonna 33 for CPMs. That's pretty outstanding. Like that's more than like finance guys, right? Like finance, I want to say is like 10 to 15, maybe 20, right?
It's ridiculously high relative to a lot of other categories, because if you think about the demographic, it's 25 to 34-year-old, 90% males.
Yeah.
Everyone has money, everyone's got a job that's watching. So that audience, to me, you don't need as many views for it to be much more valuable than putting on makeup all day, and it's very low value.
Yeah, totally. But like you say, B2B content's hard, right? Because it's like you can only talk about so many things in so many different ways, right? And comment on so many things, but it's super, super valuable. What's your type of process of coming up with ideas to make videos and posts as well?
Yeah, you sparked something. I'll answer your question in a moment, but it's
Yeah.
so funny, Nick, because this to me, I cannot underestimate enough. So everyone that wants to do something like this has some sort of imposter syndrome, whatever. Like everyone deals with that. I was speaking with a dude like 7 months ago that was working at my company, had about 2 more years of experience. So we're talking like a mid 30-year-old guy,
Hmm.
senior account executive, really good at his job, wanting to start creating content. And I said, look, on paper, you are more qualified than I am to talk about sales
Yeah.
on paper. But because of my ability to drive engagement and actually do it, I actually have the following and I'm making the money from it. So that's the only thing that separates people, is just deciding, hey, I'm not some expert because I have a Wikipedia page. I'm just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
So when I think of ideas, I made videos. I published new video on YouTube for 145 days straight.
Yeah.
So think about that. So by
Yeah.
the third day, people are commenting, Trent, you made this video 2 days ago. You're talking about the exact same thing. The titles are all the same. The content's all the same. It's just doing it. So the ideas at that point was just, okay, what's going on today? And also recognizing that YouTube is a search engine.
Hmm.
So people create content that's either entertaining or educational. Most of us in B2B are educational. So what questions are we answering? Okay, what pain does my audience, does my average 25 to 34-year-old avatar have? Okay,
Yep.
they don't know how to prospect as well as they could. And what's the problem with that? Okay, they're not hitting their quota. They're sad. They're not making the money. They can't go out on dates, whatever it may be. Okay, let me talk about how to prospect better and make ideas. So that was that point. And I now just recently invested in someone to help me with these ideas, because now we're trying to optimize everything. And that's really the game, is how do you optimize for the keywords, the description, the SEO. But in the beginning, none of that matters. All you just got to do is you just post. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, totally. And I have a hunch that I think one thing that I think that's missing in B2B content that you just mentioned is more entertainment, right? Like I would probably say
Totally.
like what's his name?
Corporate
Corporate Bro,
bro?
right? Like
Yeah.
he's pure
Killer.
entertainment and he does so well, but he's super talented, right? But I think there's a missing piece of like entertainment, like, SDR team versus SDR team. Like I think entertainment is like a piece that's missing. Are there any other areas that you think are sort of missing from the B2B game, or like big opportunities for creators?
I sort of get so worn out and bored with just the classic sales training. Hey, I am the de facto expert on how to talk about building a business case. And it's just all these lists, all these tips, and those always perform well. But I think what's missing is just the classic adage of just documenting. It's you're not trying to recreate some sales methodology to put out and compete with the challenger sale. We're not trying to do that. We're not necessarily trying to create better skits than Corporate Bro and be funny. It's just that middle area of who are you and how are you doing things? What is the BS you're dealing with? Okay, I called this account 46 times, finally got a meeting. Okay, let me post about that.
Hmm.
I went back and looked at all of my hundreds of LinkedIn posts, believe it or not, and categorized it by engagement, by impressions and likes, and basically looked at what is the highest percentage of people who resonate with me the most. And it's always the post of, I just ran a marathon today. I just promoted today. I just did XYZ today. So it's just documenting my journey. And I think that will work for anyone. It just takes a lot of time showing up to build that reputation.
Yeah, totally. And what do you think about documenting as in like day to day, right? I think something would be super interesting and even like with what you're doing, right? Building a business and just documenting everything behind the scenes, right? Like almost hiring someone to carry a camera around and watch what you do. Have you ever thought about doing that? I guess like
I would
vlogging
love
almost.
to do some. I would love to do something like that. I think it's the rawer the content, the more vulnerable it is. People love that. People love seeing other people that experience pain and difficulty and challenges.
Hmm.
So the more the like it's the content that I question, should I even post this or not? Those are always the posts that do the best. If I could justify having someone follow me around with a camera all day, I would 100% do it. I'm just getting to the point where I can really start investing back into what I'm doing. But you
Yeah.
got to make the economics work, and you also got to have a story that people find interesting. But on the side note, there's this TikTok page I came across, and it's basically this guy that his things like the normal 9 to 5, and he just documents this boring life of waking up, working out, going to the cubicle, coming back, and that's all he does. But
Yep.
he's got 100,000 followers, so you just got to tell your story, be authentic, and people resonate because it's you. No one can replicate you.
Yeah, totally. Question on what you think for other sales reps or just in general like 9 to 5 type of roles, right? Do you think everyone should be posting on LinkedIn and trying to build an audience like that, or do you think that some people are better off just sort of leaving that alone and trying to keep like a very low social presence?
I don't think it's right for everyone because not everyone can do it. And
Yep.
it's like anything challenging is if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. A lot of people would question my actions behind the scenes because I went into the office and they'd be like, I would never want to do what you're doing.
Hmm.
And I say, why? And they're just like, well, I just want to be really good at what I do. I want to be really wealthy, but be unknown, for example. I want the money, but not the fame. And I think that's great. But I think everyone has different objectives and different capabilities. I personally want to make a lot of money. I want to be successful. I want people to know who I am. And I think it's easier to make a lot of money if you have attention, because the more attention you have, you can monetize that attention. So I personally feel fortunate to have gotten attention early, which led to me diversifying my income stream. So when I did
Hmm.
lose my job, I was able to sustain my expenses and continue to save and invest. And now it has given me more opportunities and not having to, oh, I got to rush to get the next job because I can't pay for rent. All because I started posting on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, totally. I have a question about like having a bigger audience there. When you lost your job, were there companies like knocking on your door like all over the place, just like, hey, come work for us? Or how has that been?
When I made the post that I got fired, is my most popular post to date.
Yeah.
2,000 likes, like 100,000 impressions, and it was dozens of job offers and messages from a variety of different type people. But I never thought I was going to go get another job. It's all about just continuing to build for myself. But you wouldn't believe the opportunities that come. But what I will say, an interesting insight about that is, even for someone like me that has a big following, you lose leverage in the job market by not having an active job. So
Hmm.
anyone out there that's looking for a new job that's already in a company, secure that next job before you leave, because believe me, you lose a lot of leverage when you don't have that job behind you anymore, and the employers know that.
Yeah, I imagine with like negotiating salary and everything, right? It's like, well, you don't have anything to base it off of right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting insight. Have you? This is just, like personally curious about this. Did you ever close any deals or get your foot in the door, like when you were in sales, because of your social media,
No, not
or was it the
directly,
opposite?
but indirectly. I was on a few meetings. So I was on this, for example, this one meeting with this really big company, tech company. I think a lot of people would know it. But towards the fast forward, the end of the meeting, I'm basically pushing for next steps. I was trying to get this contact to introduce me to someone in another department who could buy. And I was like, just can you make the intro? And he's like, yeah, I will, so long as you don't put this on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then I and then that was pretty funny. But I think a lot of reps either mindlessly repost this article because they think they've connected with a lot of ideal buyer personas and they'll just get this social selling. I think a lot of people do that, and to me, it's just nonsense. Like I don't think much pipeline's coming from that, and I personally don't like seeing that. I would rather create content that's exclusive to me because that then transcends my company. Because if
Yeah.
you're reliant on your main W-2 income, which is what 99% of the people listening right now are, if you're just posting your company's content, okay, what happens if you lose your job or you leave your company? All that's gone. Meanwhile, if people know you outside your company, I think that makes you more valuable in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's a super interesting insight because early in my career, I had managers, right, that were like, you should build, become sort of like the expert in the area that we sell our software, right? And it's like, I'm in my early 20s. I'm not going to become a thought influencer for HR tech, right? And it's like there's only so much content or reposts you can do of that type of content. So you recommend doing like content around your job, right? Like tech sales and what you do on a day-to-day basis, rather than trying to become like an expert in like cloud and trying to attract your target audience for that. I think it's a much harder sell, right? Like, oh, I know all of this about cloud infrastructure and stuff like that, right? And you're selling to like high level CTOs. Like that's a very hard thing to do, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
It depends what your objectives are. If you have absolute certainty that you're going to start at a software company that sells cloud technology and you just know that's what you're going to do, maybe it makes sense to start building that brand reputation. Maybe your desires are to become a high level executive, maybe the CEO one day. If that's the case, then I think that's a great strategy for you. But if you desire to to be able to me, it was make money online. So it was all about building my personal brand. You start to get enough attention, you start to build thought leadership or expertise around, for example, for me, cold calling. So the idea was I'm not going to create content for my company to try and generate pipeline in my sales job. I'll keep doing that independently, but I'm going to build a personal brand around these different topics that I actually do every day. And then eventually, hey, maybe I'll create a course on cold calling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother topic talking about why monetization and different strategies, which I think is pretty interesting. But that was what I did. I said, I've made a lot of content on cold calling. People view me as someone who knows what they're doing with cold calling. I actually do it. I know what I'm talking about. Let me create a paid offering that helps people go to the next level of depth to
Yeah.
then recognize outcomes in their own job. So that was always my objective. And that's what at least looking across the LinkedIn space, that's what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, totally. And I want to get into, creating courses and what you're doing these days. One thing I do want to touch on though is when you're creating this content, right? I think it's the fear that everyone kind of has posting on social media, right? Is like people are going to judge me, people are going to make fun of me, especially if you're in a company, right? And I think you definitely dealt with that where like people are going to talk behind your back. They're going to maybe like, talk shit at sometimes. Like how'd you deal with that? Like what did that feel like?
I had been creating content for a little bit. I was at my company for about 2 years. I was a senior sales development rep, had never missed quota, high performer, and was just about to promote to an account executive 2 years in. This was when I really was creating content. I promoted to an account executive. My on target earning was like $137,000. I was in this new closing role, questioning are my skills going to translate.
Mm-hmm.
I hit my Q4 quota that first quarter, like 300% of quota. It was like a $7,000 number.
Yeah.
Closed $24,000. So I was like, I closed 300% of quota, like all this. Like you gotta kind of sensationalize anything you can.
Yep.
Fast forward to our sales kickoff in January that following year. We always had this senior sales leader that would basically just roast people in like a professional way, but he would cut pretty deep. Like we're talking like 10-year veteran at this 20-year-old company, like in with all the leadership, like they would go deep.
Yeah.
I was the feature of this sales kickoff of like really getting like I would say made fun of in like a pretty hostile way, like still within reason. To the
Yeah.
point where I'm getting messages from people that I don't even really know, basically apologizing on this guy's behalf, saying like, "Hey, I think he's going a little far. I'm sorry about this." And like, I was sitting there alone after that night, after getting basically exposed, made fun of in front of the entire company. Like it was like this fear of like, I'm creating content. I don't know if people really see it or not. Like I know I'm getting a little bit of traction, but this was like the defining moment of like, this is now what I'm known for.
Mm-hmm.
Do I like, I would like, I think some people would either quit making content entirely. They would think about leaving the company, but I decided this next year, in the next 4 quarters, I'm the ramping account executive. I haven't really proven myself. I just got basically exposed. I have to produce. So it was the fear of knowing that next sales kickoff a year later, if I didn't perform, but I'm still creating content talking about sales, I would feel like a fraud. So
Mm-hmm.
that fear of looking stupid a year later was so great that I went on to close $965,000 of ARR on like a $400,000 ramping quota that year.
Mm-hmm.
Massive year, qualified for President's Club, grew my YouTube to like 20,000 subscribers. And then the following year, they shouted me out positively. They got me an Island Boys cameo. They gave me $1,000 camera. And it was like this whole, it was this whole journey of like, okay, you rose to the occasion. So I
Yeah.
would encourage anyone that makes content, is the fear of being unknown scarier to you than the fear of being known? And what are your objectives? What do you want? So I accepted that, and that's just par with the course. And if you can't overcome that, then it's not for you.
Totally. That's a good one, because I think that's a huge fear, right? And like you can either use that as like fuel, or you can use it as like I probably shouldn't do that. I should keep my mouth shut and I should just do my job type of thing, right? I
And
guess
most
wrapping.
people will do that. Most people will do that. Most people will do that. And that's why there's prizes on the other side of people who do put themselves out there, because
Yeah.
you're going against the tide.
Totally. And it's a hard thing to do, right? And on that sort of note, what are like your biggest tips, like, 3 to 5 tips for someone that like wants to get into it? Obviously, like, you know, you have to stay consistent, but what are like any insights you found, or what you recommend to people? Like, I'm sure you have people approaching you all the time saying like, hey, I would love to have like a LinkedIn audience. What are your tips there? And what are some realizations of like, now that you have it, that you didn't know when you started?
I think a big pitfall people have is, first and foremost, they're so excited they dive into multiple platforms. They're like, I'll put a YouTube video out, I'll clip it up into these shorts for TikTok, I'll put an Instagram post out. And they're confused by trying to overstep. It's hard enough to do it on one channel, let alone multiple.
Mm-hmm.
So I would start by committing to one single channel and saying, do I just want to start making YouTube videos? Do I just want to start making LinkedIn posts? Do I just want to start doing Instagram Reels, whatever it may be? Commit to one channel for the first, let's say, 6 months. For that's the major thing. The next thing is, it's hard to start, right? Overcoming that fear of what will people think of me. That's a challenge. The bigger challenge is staying consistent after you've started. That's the only way you'll grow, is by committing to one channel, posting frequently enough to get noticed, and then starting to build a brand. Another mistake people make, and I'm not necessarily one to say it's a mistake, but it is trying to monetize too early. It's, oh, I see all these people on Twitter. I see all these guys on Twitter, and they say, hey, I've got this course. They first pin tweet, and they've got like 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
I mean, given I have way less, and I'm already trying to monetize, so maybe I'm
Yeah, but
making
you
a mistake.
monetize in other ones first.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's truly trying to lead with value for 6 months to a year, and then you can justify monetizing and it being more successful, opposed to just, okay, build a little audience, trying to sell this course and kind of churn and burn, which a lot of people do. So it sort of just depends on what your objectives are, but commit to one channel. You got to stay consistent, which is obvious. It's as simple as that. Not necessarily try and exploit the audience to come across, because I think that it hurts your brand when you start to introduce a paid offering.
Yep.
It could be positive or negative. And then I would say just stay true to you, because the mistake I made in the beginning was trying to talk personal finance like Graham Stephan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not rich. Why should I talk personal finance? But then that's the imposter syndrome of, well, I'm qualified enough to talk about anything I want. So I think it needs to come across as you have true receipts and validation of, I have a higher likelihood of talking about how to promote from an SDR to an account executive, because I've done it, than I do talking about how to take a business public, because I've never done something like that. So I
Yeah.
would say really analyze what you are interested in and what you know a lot about, because that will be interesting to you to actually create content, and you'll come across as more credible to the people you're trying to build the loyalty of.
Totally. And do you say like give away all the juice, like sort of give away all your advice, all your secrets, and then how do you structure your paid course? What does that look like?
Alex Hormozzi's got a great thing on it. He's like, give away
Yeah.
all the secrets and then charge for the implementation. I think that's a great general framework for it. The way I always thought was I was against monetization because I liked the way Hormozy did it of I just only deliver value and I'll be known for that. Hey, I have nothing to sell you here today. I opened a lot of my
Yeah.
videos like that. And then eventually there was a guy at my company that had a much smaller following than me at the time, was just on one channel, LinkedIn. He introduced a paid offering and I saw that and it made me jealous. Like
Hmm.
you know how you see certain people that it makes you feel something. It makes
Yeah.
you feel something, and really analyze why that is. And typically, it's jealousy or envy, anger. Some like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too. But I'm not actually doing it, so it sort of makes you analyze yourself. So that's one mini lesson here: is anytime you feel that, how can you lean in to learn from this rather than just resent them, unfollow them, which I still do a lot to this day because there's little things that I'm like kind of exposed as my own insecurity, vulnerabilities. But I saw this guy monetize and I'm like, he plugs this thing on every post. Maybe I should start doing that. And then I reached out to him, put the ego aside. I was like, hey, let me try and learn from him. How are you thinking about this? Why are you doing this? And he said, when you offer a paid offering, it allows your true fans to go a layer deeper with you, and they will take what you are saying much more serious than if they didn't pay for it. So
Yep.
that was then the light bulb moment of, well, I can still offer all this value, but if I charge for this specific content that I believe will help them deliver the outcome they're looking for, they will take it even more serious and it will give them a higher likelihood of success. So it was all of that in tandem to, hey, I think I actually could make some real money with this and monetize. That's what led me to then my first paid offering after the YouTube ad revenue, which is just once you get 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time. That's the on ramp to make money online without having to basically sell anything.
Yeah.
I introduced a cold calling course. It was, hey, I built a brand around this. So what I did was I just sat down and I thought, what steps are repeatable that I've done that work for me? Okay, let me talk about my metrics associated with cold calling. Let me share my exact script. Let me share how I think about objections. And it's basically just 2 hours of a structured content that I put together, put up on Squarespace that I built myself using templates, and then started selling these courses, continued to iterate it, make it better over time, and just try and better serve the people who are buying it. But there's no better feeling than putting up a digital knowledge based product that was free to make, that was unique to me, and you're sitting there and you get a notification on your email that a course is sold and
Yeah.
you're doing no work for it. And then it's in the middle of the night, someone in a different country. When you delink time from money, it's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, the dopamine hit from a Stripe notification or a Shopify notification. There's no better feeling. It's funny you bring up Hormozy. I think he stopped saying that recently that I have nothing to sell you, right? Because he has his books. So he no longer sells or no longer says that. But yeah, one thing I find interesting in like the course space, right? A lot of people are like, look, you could spend 4,000 hours going through all of my content and you could find everything that's going to be in this course, or you could support me and buy this for $200, $300, and I packaged it for you so you can go through it in 3 hours and learn exactly what you need
Yep.
to do, right? And I think that's a pretty good model or pitch to it as well, right?
It's value. It's value. It's saving them time, but also I would encourage anyone thinking to ask themselves, you are saving them time going through all your content, but you need to also save them time to reach the objective they are going after. So what pain are they experiencing and what end result will they reach
Yeah.
by going through your content? So more confident on the phone, setting more meetings, making more money, whatever it may be. If that's the outcome they want, then they're willing to pay for it. And the clearer you can be on what they want and convince them that this is a low risk, this is a quick way of doing it, and this will improve your life as a result. It fortifies your offering. And I know Hormozy's got all sorts of great frameworks around this, but
Yeah.
that's how I now start to think about it.
Totally, totally. So on your LinkedIn, it says you're now at Course Careers. What's the deal with that?
Yes. So Course Careers is a college alternative, and we're helping train folks. reach new tech careers the modern way. So imagine going through a 4-year degree, paying all this money, getting in debt when it's still uncertain if you'll get the job. So
Mhm.
what Course Careers has done, the founder, his name's Troy, fantastic guy. I would encourage everyone to go look him up on LinkedIn. You can just search Course Careers Troy. And what he did was he was homeless for a while. He got in tech sales without a college degree. So he put together this whole platform where he finds these folks that have actually done the career, like me, for example, tech sales. And he says, hey, let's put together a course teaching people how to break into these careers. It's specialized knowledge and education so people can immediately get hired in these roles. And think about paying $500 to get a company to reach out to you to then receive a $60,000 a year SDR job.
Yeah.
That's absolutely transformational. And that's why the community is so strong. That's why so many people are investing in it. I had been creating content for a while, and this is another benefit of a personal brand and content. I was creating content for a few years. I just started to monetize a little bit. And then all of
Mhm.
a sudden, these major players who have the businesses say, hey, this person could help me grow my business, but I could also help them as well. So that's what led to me partnering with Course Careers to remake the existing tech sales course they had in exchange for basically incentives as part of being partnered with the company, but also helping fortify that offering, making it stronger, helping promote the brand. So that's been a significant income stream for me,
Mhm.
which has made losing my job much easier to handle than as if I didn't have it, because the ad revenue is such a small part of the monthly monetization. And it's partnerships like that that I've realized that is where the real money is at, because I've never done brand deals. I don't like to just promote anything to the audience. I'm only promoting things that I have a vested interest in, that I have some ownership stake in, that I believe in, that I'm behind. And
Yeah.
Course Careers is one of those things. And it's just a perfect synergy because a lot of people who watch my content want to get in tech sales. So I now have an offering 17 hours of paid content on Course Careers to get them hired in tech sales. And there's so much social proof. It's almost insane at this point for that particular example. But that's what that is. And highly recommend anyone listening to check it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I think those programs are pretty cool. There's some that I don't know if you saw last year. There's some that got some heat for the way that they're structured and whatnot, and how they charge people. But I think those programs are awesome because, I think you preach this as well, right? Like, college is great. I would not take college back at all, but like, you do not need college to get into to be good at an SDR job or a BDR job. And yet a lot of companies still require that you have a college degree, right? But it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. What are your thoughts on college? Obviously,
I
I
got
think I know them, but yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think I would have had the courage at 18 to not go to college and then in place do one of these programs. I really don't think I would have had it because there's
Yeah.
so much social pressure around go to college. But think about this. I got hired in tech sales without even knowing what it was. But I was
Yep.
fortunate to have a few things going for me to be in this program. These companies looking to hire people, why not hire them younger and hire someone that specifically knows I've dedicated myself to this career path. This is what I want to be in. So, and I know so many reps that started at 18, 19, they somehow got their foot in the door. By the time they're my age, they're my boss because
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
started way earlier. So what I recommend is folks is if you are still in high school, if you are in college, Course Careers, for example, is priced in a way that allows them to really test the waters and learn everything they need to know to see if maybe it is right for them, but also to see if maybe it's not right for them and they'd rather be in digital marketing, they'd rather be in some other random IT career. So I think it's a great supplement for that. And the point you had made earlier around these boot camps, they're so predatory. We'll take a percentage of your salary. We'll charge you tens of thousands of dollars. Whereas when it's a lower price point, it's just a much higher certainty of success. But I, I, I'm not going to sit here and say don't go to college. I think that's still the most common, safe route to do. But seek out these alternative education sources in tandem to it because it could completely change your life.
Yeah, totally. Isn't it funny how like a lot of people, myself included, like end up in tech sales? Like when I originally got out of college and started interviewing for BDR or SDR jobs, I had no idea what a BDR was or what an SDR even did, right? And I probably interviewed for 15, 20 different places, not even knowing what an SDR or BDR was. And I didn't get a lot of them. I think mainly because like I didn't even know really what I was interviewing for, right? They're like, can you make cold calls? Like, what's your experience? Like, well, I just got out of college, like I don't really have any experience. But yeah, if I actually took a course and knew what a BDR was and like had experience at all, like I think it would have totally changed the way I got my first job and probably would open the door to a lot more places.
We talked about the marketplace being competitive. So this is one of the opportunities to make yourself more competitive. If it's between two candidates to get the job and one candidate doesn't actually know what they would be doing, but the other candidate has a clear why they want to be doing it, and they know exactly what they would be doing day to day. They're familiar with the technology, the lingo, and but maybe they're not a traditional candidate. I think that person is in a great spot to potentially get hired because they've invested themselves in their education. And I think macro perspective, there's still this stigma around courses, the e-learning and whatnot. But I think the people that really do it right,
Yeah.
build up the brands around value and real results, transformative income impact, they're going to win in the long run. I think e-learning is really a space that's going to continue to blow up because
Yeah.
people make money on the computer. Why not learn on the computer?
Totally, totally. I mean, yeah, it just makes sense. One thing I do want, sorry, switching up a little bit here. I have one of your posts, and I think this post has done pretty well for you. It's you basically took a screenshot of your tax statement and you've tweeted it out. I have a few questions here. So you showed back in 2019 you were making 77,000. In 2022, you made 302,000. So first off, when did you decide that, hey, I'm going to be super open about my pay? Because I don't think that's a normal thing in the tech sales world, just in 9 to 5 world in general. And then two, I want to know how it felt when you made 302,000 versus 77,000 just 3 years before.
Following Graham Stephan playbook. He opened up all of his finances and was very transparent. So I said that clearly works. That's what people want to see. Next, there's loads of people making content, but do all these people have the results? Maybe, maybe not. How do you know? Okay, well, I'm gonna post out. Here's my literal W-2 to
Yeah,
reflect what I was able to accomplish by what level, what age. So it's very transparent. I think pay should be talked about widely, and I think that should be public. I think everyone should be forced to report this is exactly how much money I've made because that then tells everyone your contributions and your value to the marketplace. I think in the past it's a very touchy subject. It's taboo in a way, but I think in the modern economy, especially if you're creating content, you need to be transparent with it. I do think there gets to a point where if you start making, let's say, 10 times that, you don't want to make yourself a target. But I like to be very transparent with it. To your point, Graham Stephan wasn't working for a corporation when he did that. I
hmm,
was. So when I
yeah,
first really was public and like, here's a video, here's all of it, I remember a few people like I could tell like they were like, hey, you shouldn't do that. They told me I shouldn't do that, but those are also the people that aren't creating content, don't have the same goals,
yeah,
and also that W-2 that didn't even reflect the online income, which was also steadily growing at that point in time. So it was more. What I would say is I it felt cool because I had no idea what I would have made. I knew I had a really great year, but you got to think it's from the work you did in 2021.
hmm,
That's then what is reflected in 2022 for the whole year. So it was cool because I didn't expect it was that much. I mean, it was the previous year I did 170, so it's
hmm,
basically a full double by
yeah.
26, 302 of W2 income. So I just wanted to share it because it's validation of hey, I was able to accomplish this income growth by this age. It's real. You can look at my W2 tax reports right here.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm proud of. So I want to share it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I do think it would be interesting if more people shared it because I think there's two ends of the spectrum. I think there's sneaky people out there that don't get their content seen at all, but they make crazy money. There's other people that, let's say, make like 60,000 a year, but they have, 30,000 Twitter followers and everybody believes what they say, like Bible, right? Like, I think it's an interesting spectrum that you have there. So that's really cool. I don't think that a lot of people have the balls to put something out like that, especially at like a corporate company, right? Because you're not only opening up that information to like the entire marketplace to judge you, but especially the people you have to work with day to day, right? Like you're working next to the AE that knows exactly how much you made last year and how much they made, right? And they're probably thinking like, should I have made that much, or like did they make more, or did they make less, right? It opens up a lot of conversations, which I think is very interesting.
Well, I want people when I say a post, I think there's more credibility built in that hey, I've achieved these results. it's the same thing with a billionaire founder saying, hey, we're going to go out and do XYZ. You inherently believe what they say way more solely because, hey, billionaire, here's this perception, whether we like to believe it or not. That's just the way it is. And with communication. So, yeah, if people are jealous and they're doing less, that's then back to the point of, well, rather than having envy and these negative emotions of resentment, what can I learn from him? What is he doing well that I'm not doing well that I can learn from him? So it's the same thing for me, because in order for me to then get to that next level and push 500 grand a year, a million a year, and however far I can take it,
Yeah.
I need to then learn from the people who are already doing it. So I'm creating content for the people that are making less than that want to get to that point, because I've actually done that. So I therefore am more qualified to do that than someone who doesn't have the receipts to show for something like that. So I think that's another general point too, is create for people just a chapter or two behind you in the book,
Yeah.
because you come across as a much more of a position of expertise.
Yeah, totally. I think that's why most people, right? Because most people are behind Graham Stephan, but I think that's why, he has so much influence. It's because he has proved like, hey, this is exactly how much I make. And he's done it in multiple assets too, right? Like he's done it in real estate and now he does it in YouTube. We keep coming back to Graham Stephan here, but yeah, good stuff there. So I know we only have a couple minutes left here. So what's next for you? Are you? I know you're working on the courses, obviously YouTube channel, or is there a company in your future? You're gonna start a new company? You're gonna go to a new company? What do you got going on?
I'll say this, and I say this very cautiously because it is a bold statement, but I truly would have to lose everything financially to justify being an employee again. And that's where I'm at.
I like that. I like that a lot. So no company. Are you going to start a company though? I guess you kind of
I don't
already have a company, right? Like you'd call it a media company already, but are you going to start any more like service based kind of product company?
I'm very cautious to set anything up that requires direct time, because the
Hmm.
lifestyle I've managed to build where time is dealing for money, I'm making more now per month than I was previously working by a fair amount.
Yeah.
And the time I spend working is significantly less than I was. So it's really just a level of, I have enough. I have more than enough for what I need to do to cover my current expenses. But based on aspirational goals and targets, what do I want to accomplish? So based on that, that then will dictate what I invest in. And when you look at the definition of an entrepreneur, it's someone that takes larger, basically abnormal risk
Yeah.
financially to gain upside. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing with the content, continue to try to grow my influence, continue to try and monetize in the most efficient way.
Yeah.
And then based on where we reinvest those funds, that's really to be determined.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch. I'm sure it'll be big. And hopefully we can interview you again here when you announce anything new. But yeah, really appreciate you jumping on here. I know we're at the hour here, but yeah, thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.
So it was a lot of fun, Nick.